You have to tell us about it. Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to do one as an adult. I just didn't do one as a kid. So I didn't do one as a kid either. So yeah, I would love to talk to you more about it. Yeah, it was so like when I forgot it over there. Really? Yeah.
Great. Okay, we're going to start. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Meditations from Sinai, class number 2. The Zen master, he's turning 70. So the students, they throw a party and they buy a big gift box with a ribbon on top, and they give it to the Zen master, and the Zen master carefully unties the ribbon, opens the box, and the box is empty. So he smiles and says, "Nothing, just what I wanted." Meditations from Sinai, we'll see how this type of meditation, or this class, will tap into a different, or a more, I would say, more spiritual side of meditation than last week. So in class number 1, last week we spoke about how Jewish meditation, or a few things. Number 1, we spoke about how meditation is organically Jewish. That meditation, as opposed to most common thought that meditation belongs to Eastern religions, meditation is actually in the Jewish tradition since the time of our forefathers. They were shepherds. They were shepherds precisely in order to be able to meditate and to be connected mentally without having the need to be worried and to invest their thoughts into the mundane. Rather, they were able to be secluded and to meditate. We saw some sources over there. We saw some sources of how they, of how our forefathers, how the tribes specifically, they all had this ability to meditate. We saw how meditation also works today with prayers. As much as we say that prayers is a minyan and showing up to shul, but nevertheless, prayers is also about connecting and meditation. And we spoke about the different types of meditations that we could do in the morning as we wake up. And we as well spoke about the general buildup of the human being, of how our emotions and our mind work, how they work together, and that the thoughts that we have are the mothers, in the way that Tanya describes them, are the mothers to the emotions. So thoughts give birth to emotions, and according to the thoughts that we have, those are the emotions that follow. So last week we mentioned the hack of, if you want to have good feelings, so you need to have good thoughts. Although there are different ways to have, feel better, and that's maybe by acting, or going on a run, or dancing, forcing yourself to get in a better mood. Nevertheless, that is kind of like forcing the feelings from the outside in. But if you want to design the feeling from the inside out, all the way at the core, so then is starting with the thoughts. Thoughts is what dictate the feelings, and the feelings follow the thoughts. So having positive thoughts creates positive feelings. On the contrary, having negative thoughts will create negative feelings. So that is the core of last week, the meditation that we spoke about, how meditation could help with emotions, with feeling better. And this week we'll see meditation in a way that is a little bit different. So let's start just asking, how would you define spirituality?
To me, it's like a feeling of being connected and engaging in your environment, world.
Okay. So asking questions. Not accepting the status quo. Okay. Anyone else? How would you define spirituality?
I'd say it's like your connection to the world, your understanding of why and how you decide that.
Is there a difference between spirituality feeling enlightened.
Great question. Maybe enlightenment is spirituality.
That was in my mind. I was thinking like, all right, what's like, is it enlightenment? Like, is it like feeling? I mean, everyone when you have a good point of connecting, but like you feel like one, like you feel like one with just everything around you, people, animals, just everything, and then you also feel like at peace at the same time. Maybe how I describe it. So that might be more on the enlightenment side.
Okay. We're touching into it, yeah.
Spirituality to me is almost like feeling like I've discovered this secret thing that just is so like transcendent, but that no one else like really even knows about or understands because it's my own version of whatever I'm creating. That makes any sense. The words are just kind of
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's how I kind of think about it too. It's sort of like my like personal connection to like divine presence, and to Dustin's point too, it's like my personal connection to like divine presence, and also like how everything is connected.
Okay. Everyone is touching kind of like what this class is going to be about.
Hitting the target,
No, actually everyone is hitting it, just from different sides. So I'm happy that hopefully at the end of the class we'll see how like all these points come together. So that's the beautiful part of it. And let me ask you, in order to find this spiritual feeling or experience, how do you get that?
For me, some of my most profound spiritual experiences have actually been like in nature and being alone in nature and having like time to reflect and feel connected. But I think it can happen in lots of different situations too. Like I feel like I've had spiritual experiences like in community with other people and feeling connected, or like dancing or singing or being in shul. I don't think it has to be like one particular different thing. But if I were to think about my most profound spiritual experience, it would definitely be outside.
Beautiful. I mean, you shared a spiritual experience at the Kotel, right? Okay. That would make sense. Anyone else?
I feel like for me, the opposite. Most sometimes it's when I'm around people, I don't want to survive. Yeah, you know, but like, but it's like when everyone is like, when you connect with other people, you kind of like connect to their spark that they have inside.
Beautiful, beautiful. Great. So as Dustin said, we're all hitting the target. I'm just going to bring it together, hopefully at the end of the class. So let's read page 39. Sarah, I want to start? Yes.
We are creatures of internal duality due to our unique composition, an unlikely marriage of body and soul, a decidedly corporeal body with material needs and a powerfully spiritual soul. Our body consciousness is driven to pursue material needs and wants, whereas our soul consciousness lives only for a higher purpose and longs constantly for deeper connection with God. The fact that we inhabit a material world causes our body-related consciousness to present as our dominant default consciousness. Nevertheless, that does not prevent us from developing awareness of our soul and from harnessing its innate spirituality by detaching from our materially oriented consciousness.
Okay. So in simple words, very sophisticated terms over here. In simple words, we are composed, human beings have a body and a soul. And we have character traits that come from or that are expressed from our body, and our character traits that are expressed from our soul. So if you would have to define yourself, let's do the exercise number in page 39. If you have to describe yourself, and the accurately, meaning the real self, how would you describe that? And if you want to share one thing that comes to mind, great. But if not, we'll revisit, we'll review what you have, whatever you come up with, we'll review it at the end of the class and see where this comes from. Okay. You don't have to share all of it, but if you want to share one, a positive one, go ahead. Dustin, you want to
Yeah,
start?
I'll go. Curious.
Great.
Curious guy.
Significant,
Okay.
adaptable,
Great.
resilient.
Great.
Since we were talking about like connectedness, I put like friend and daughter.
Great. Great. Okay. This is great. Now, this is a story. And hopefully the story will give us a segue to understand or to have a more clarity from the rest of the class or the message that we want to bring out. And that's the story with Isaac, the Isaac Synagogue. Anyone heard about the Isaac Synagogue? So the Isaac Synagogue has a story. And it's the story of Isaac Yakubowitz, the Isaac, the son of Jacob. And he lived in Krakow. And he had a dream. He had a dream that under the main bridge in Prague, there is a treasure. So he had that dream once, and he was like, okay, I'm not going to bother. But then, time after time, repeatedly started having the same dream. That under the bridge in Prague, there is a treasure. So at one point, he's like, okay, he got the message. He goes all the way to Prague, with his shovel and his bucket, and he's ready to start digging. But as he starts digging, he encounters an officer. The officer is like, "What are you doing? This is public property. You're gonna get arrested." So he's like, "No, I'll explain you. I had a dream that under the bridge in Prague there is a treasure." So the officer starts laughing. He says, "Really? You take that seriously? I'm having a dream already for many days, many nights, that under the house of Jacob from Krakow, there is a treasure also." So as he heard that, he went back to his house, he digged, and he found a treasure. Now, this is a legend, but a lot of people say, or the reason why this is considered as a real story is because there is a shul, there is a synagogue that is built by his name. He built a synagogue, and he was a very poor person. So how he had the means to build the synagogue, the story goes that that's the way. That was the way that he was able to afford it. But the point is that at times, there is this treasure that we have within us. And for this case, let's say the treasure will be the analogy to spirituality. There's a spirituality that is within us. And at times, we try to go out there. We try to look for it under the bridge in Prague, and thinking that there is where I'm going to find that treasure. There is where I'm going to be able to access spirituality. But the real reality is that from the beginning, the treasure was always right where you are, always right under your home. And there was no need to go anywhere, but rather just to dig deeper. And for us, what it says is that, at times you're trying to get these spiritual experiences, there's no need to go to the Himalayas or to go to anywhere specific to be able to access the spiritual component that we have. Now, you may ask, if so, why do we go to the Rebbe Zohar? Or why do we go to the Kotel? Or why do we go to all those places that kind of like create that spiritual sensitivity that you don't have in other places? And the reason is because what that makes us, or what that gives us, is not a sensitivity in the place, but that allows us to recognize who we are. So I would translate, or I would just, according to these lines, I would comment on the story that he had, is that you go into the Kotel and having that experience, it's not that it only belongs to the Kotel. You saw how suddenly you had the appreciation of being a Jew, that even you're thousands of miles away with strangers, nevertheless, you guys were all able to connect, singing the same songs and having the same experiences, not because of the Kotel precisely, but because of who you are as a Jew. it might have taken for you to be at the kotel to recognize that within you. But at the end of the day, it's always within us. And that's also the same experience that we have when we go to the Rebbe. When we go to the Rebbe, when we go to visit a rabbi or to visit the grave of a pious Jew, it's not that over there is the solution. But over there, or by the Rebbe, or by the kotel, they show us, and we could see or we could recognize suddenly the treasure that we have. And there was always a matter of working on within ourselves. There's a story with Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. You heard of him? He was a former chief rabbi of Britain. He passed away 2 years ago, recently. Very influential person. And when he was in his early teens, before he even went to school, he's originally from England, but he had cousins in LA. So before going to school, he decided that he's going to take a gap year, go to America, and visit the Jewish leaders in America. So, long story short, he ended up meeting a lot of leaders from the different, total wide range of community type and different type of reform, conservative, religious, Hasidic. Like, he just met with everyone. And he also met with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he said, like, one of his comments is that the difference that he saw, the experience that he had meeting the Lubavitcher Rebbe and meeting different leaders, is that every time he met a leader, he left the room impressed of how great of a person and how great of an accomplished person he just met. He said that when he left the Lubavitcher Rebbe's interview or private audience, he was impressed of how important and how of an accomplished person he was. Suddenly he was the one who was the result. It was not about how great that rabbi was, but rather his experience was how great he was in the first place. And that is hopefully the same experience that we strive to attain when we go to the Ohel, when we go to the Rebbe's resting place. It's not that we need to go there because the solution is over there, or what really the Rebbe makes us or gives us is the ability to look inwards and reveal who we are at the core, really who we already are. Not adding any weird, he's not giving us anything. Along these lines, there is a story that a student, a secular student, once met with the Rebbe. He was actually with a group of students who went to meet the Rebbe, and he kind of asked the Rebbe, and in his early years, asked the Rebbe curiously, but also with a little bit of chutzpah, like, you know, chutzpah is audacity. He asked, why do we need a Rebbe? Like, why are you so important? Like, you know, we could, you know, do mitzvahs. Yeah. That was his question. That was his question. It's like, we could do all the mitzvahs, we could learn Torah, we could, like, you know, be good Jews. Why do we need a Rebbe? So the Rebbe said that maybe I'm mixing two stories over here. But anyways, one of the punchlines of the stories was that the Rebbe said that the Rebbe the Rebbe is a geologist of a soul. Geologist is a person who deals with earth and gems and can tell, like, in which part of the world you can find diamonds. So it said that the Rebbe is like a geologist of a soul, of a person. He could tell you where to dig and what to dig for, but the digging, you have to do it yourself. The Rebbe is not going to dig for you, he's not going to do the work for you, but he's going to show you the diamonds you already have within you. So, bringing this back to us, we'll see how the spiritual component of meditation will align and open the eyes to that diamonds that we already have within ourselves. Okay, there was something else I wanted to share. Great.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and a therapist?
Does the therapist know where the soul is?
I don't. That depends on what therapist you have. Maybe I don't know. But let's say you have a Jewish therapist.
All right.
Are they considered a rabbi?
Well, it's a good question. I would say that anyone who's aware of a soul could be a good could be a good Rebbe. But at the end of the day, the thing that the Rebbe has, the awareness of a Rebbe is a soul awareness. You could instantly see a soul instead of the default being the body. And this really ties into what we are going to talk now. So let's hold that question. By the end of the class, hopefully it's going to make sense. So we mentioned in page 39 that at the end of the day, we are composed by a body and a soul. There are things that come from our body, and there are things that come from our soul. So we have to understand a little bit what our soul is. And once we get a little bit of understanding what the soul is, we could start understanding how meditation helps us attaining spirituality. Okay, so text number 1. We see text number 1, it's from Genesis. It says, God formed the human from the dust of the ground, and he breathed into the human's nostrils the soul of life. We see from here right away that the human being is composed from one end. He is composed from like the highest level of spirituality. It's from the level of breathing. It says the Tanya explains that when someone blows, you could talk for hours. Because talking uses a very external level of your air. But breathing, you could only, or blowing, you could only blow for maybe a few seconds until you have to, like, again, take a deep breath and continue blowing again. You cannot blow for a long time. I don't know if you ever recently blow a balloon. After a few minutes, you have a headache. That's because you're requiring a lot of energies. The point is that God also blew into the nostrils. It says like uses the wording breath into the human's nostrils, the soul of life, because it's like a very high level of godliness. It's a very high level of spirituality that is given into the person, is created into the human being. Not only that, that doesn't only apply to the first human being, but also applies to every single one of us. As we say in the morning prayers, we say, Elokai, that's text number 2, my God, the soul that you placed within me is pure. You created it, you formed it, you breathed into me. You breathed it into me. In other words, saying that not only that applies to Adam, the first person, that he had this very high level of spirituality or soul, or godliness that was infused into him, but every single person after also has this level of spirituality or godliness that is breathed into him. So kind of like going back to what is spirituality, spirituality would be the way that we are defining it in this course is, or the way that we're defining it according to Kabbalah, is the godly aspect that we have. The godly aspect, the spiritual aspect that we have within ourselves. And that is the soul. We are composed from body and soul. And from the bodily functions come everything that is mundane and everything that is physical. But then we have a spiritual self as well. We have a soul, and from there comes all the positive traits and all the altruistic traits. So now, let's see more specific how we understand the soul and spirituality, because these two terms are very, very abstract. So there is page number 41, text number 3. You want to read?
The human soul is the candle of God.
This is an analogy according to King Solomon in Proverbs. He brings an analogy that the human soul is a candle of God. What would you say that a soul and a candle have in common? What? Name one thing.
Sometimes they burn brighter, and sometimes they burn softer.
Okay. So that they are able to illuminate, to burn, flow. Okay. What else? What else is a candle and a spread light? Great. Great. So you need some substance to hold into. Okay. What else?
To kind of build on what Dustin was saying, spread light without diminishing.
Great. You're able to keep on giving without diminishing. Great. So these are all, again, points that hit the target. And we'll see, before we go into the text number 4, so what all of you saying is that basically a candle has, from one end, it has fire. From the other end, it has a wick, like actual wax. And there is like a balance or a conflict of interest between the fire and the candle. The nature of fire is, or what fire says is, I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to be here, I'm not interested in being here. Although fire, gets a bad rep with being the one that's destroying and being, you'll burn in, like something negative. At the end of the day, the fire itself, it consumes everything and it consumes itself. There's no preservation of the, what's the law? The preservation of the species. That's a concept when a species wants. No. When a species wants to not be eliminated.
Yeah. I don't know. I know there's like
Survival of yes. Survival of the, what's the term? That's the term.
Well, I guess that one's like if you're competing with someone else. But it's like a survival instinct.
Correct.
Survive, yeah.
It's a survival instinct that at least you want to survive. You don't want to be eliminated. Now, fire, interestingly enough, doesn't have that instinct. Fire is the opposite. Fire is like, get me out of here. As soon as I'm able to leave here, I'm going to be out of here. You're kind of forcing fire into existence. That's why you ignite a fire. You need to like force it into existence. And once you ignite the fire, it's not like comfortable. The fire wants to get away. Happens to be that you're holding the fire back with the candle. Soon as the candle, let's say, there's a lot of water, or there's no wick, or there's no way for the fire to hold itself, it's gone, it's out. Candle on the other end, or the wax on the other end, the nature is the opposite. Is I'm here, I want to be here, and I'm going to stay here. We could touch it, you could feel it. It's not going anywhere. It's physical. You have to store it, you have to put it away, and then you have to bring it back out. So suddenly you have the fire and you have the wick, that they're total opposites. But nevertheless, when a candle is lit, you have these two acting the same way. You have these two acting together. And this gives us an analogy of why the soul of a person is compared to a candle. Because from one end we have the soul that is godly and that has no interest in being in this world. Is always flickering, is always going up, it always wants to go back to its source, it's not interested in settling in this world. But then we have the body, and the body is the total opposite. The body is trying to figure it out, how I'm going to establish myself in the world, and how I'm going to make sure that I'm comfortable, and that how do I establish and make myself and my existence even better and more comfortable in order to exist. And I'm going to have the health insurance that I need, and I could travel the way I need. Like everything is in place for me to exist. So suddenly we have the soul, that is like the fire that wants to leave, is not interested in being here. And suddenly we have the body that represents almost the opposite. It's like the weight of the soul that's the comparison to the candle. And now that we have this too, we'll kind of like on the background, we could start kind of like making sense of what is at the end of the day who we are at the core, and then who we are because of our existence. So, text number 4. Shadira, I want to read. This is from the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya.
It is recorded in many of the works of the medieval rabbis that
Page 42, text number 4.
sorry. Okay. The nature of a flame is to flicker upward, indicating that the flame intrinsically seeks to part from its wick in order to unite with its source above. Similarly, the human soul naturally desires and yearns to separate itself and escape its body in order to unite with its origin and source in God, the blessed source of all life.
So now the question is, how do we achieve that? How do we able to connect with our soul? So now that we define spirituality as something godly, or by godly nature. So we have a soul. And now having a soul, the question is like, great, how do we access it? Like, are we even conscious about our soul? Like, we of course have a soul because we're alive. If we wouldn't have or you can see it's evident. If someone who doesn't have a soul, when the soul departs, the body falls all the way to the ground. It's a corpse. But as long as the soul is in the body, it keeps it alive. So the question is for us, that we are saying that's still alive. What's our awareness, or what's top of mind for us? Is top of mind for us our body and our bodily needs, or is top of mind for us our soul and the mission and the purpose or the needs that the soul is here for? And this is when meditation comes in. Meditation comes in when we have a reality, but it's not evident to us. When we are living, we are walking around, we have a soul, we use it every day, but we don't pay attention to that. This is when meditation helps us, and this is a different type of meditation that we're going to explore. There's specifically two, but this is the point of this meditation, is to bring that awareness to something that, if not, would have just be not paying attention at all. It's like a music playing and someone is deaf. Just this beautiful music playing and someone cannot hear it. I don't know if you guys saw ever the disco that has like silent. You know, you walk in there and it's like these people are crazy. Like, but at the end of the day, it's like they're listening to something that you're not listening to. They're tuning to something that you're not tuning to. That's in the analogy they bring a lot for times you see Hasidic people, you know, dancing around. There's like a stereotype of a Hasid, like who's dancing around, you know, he's always dancing. And like, you know, Christians like, why is he always dancing? And they say that because he's hearing a music, he's hearing a melody that most people don't. You know, he's tuning to a different frequency, and hopefully with meditation, we'll be able to tune into that frequency as well. One of the reasons why I'm excited about learning this and exploring this together with you is because this is one of like the meat and potatoes of what someone learns in yeshiva. When you go to a Chabad yeshiva, when you go to a Hasidic yeshiva and try to learn, you learn a lot of Jewish law, a lot of Talmud, but as well the mysticism that you learn is this. This is, of course, you know, it's compiled into like one class, but this is the core of it. This is the core of it, of like kind of like drilling in this idea that there is something beyond what our naked eye see, and there's something beyond that what we feel, you know, immediately, and we have to tune into that frequency, and that hopefully will achieve by meditation. So we'll see two types of meditation. The first meditation is going to be, for lack of better words, we'll be able to define it as detaching meditation. It's a meditation that detaches. And then we'll see what's wrong with this meditation, and we'll see a better alternative for meditations. So coming back, what's the purpose? The purpose is that we have a soul. The purpose is that we have this treasure inside of us, and we have to attain it. We have to achieve it. We have to tune into it. Now, let me ask you, if you have a treasure, or if there is a treasure in the ground, what are the ways you could take it out? What are the ways you can access it?
Outside of digging?
Yeah, so I have to, like, my example is not so simple. The most common is digging, and this is what we're going to see first. In other words, you have to take away the rubble, you have to take away the dirt, you have to get in and get dirty and start digging and take all the dirt to the side until you get to the coffin, if it's a coffin, you know? If that's a treasure. Not a coffin, sorry. Sorry, not a coffin. A treasure chest, yeah. So in Spanish is cofre. That's a translation issue over there. Cofre is in Spanish, coffin is a different type of wooden box. But anyway, a treasure chest. That's much better. Treasure chest, yeah, the coffin is that's not my thing. If the treasure chest is out of metal, you know, so we have two ways how to do it. Either to, number one, you dig and you move away the dirt, Number two is you could have a very, very strong magnet and the treasure just pops out. That's a more like creative example just to fit into what we're going to learn. But those might be the two ways how to access that treasure chest, either by digging or by having a strong magnet. And these two examples, we'll see how they apply when it comes to meditation. So meditation number one is called Hitbodedut. We're going to see it in text number 5. We're going to see the practice of Hitbodedut. We're going to see the history of it. And then we're going to see also like what is maybe not so, maybe the flaws of it or the risks of that type of Hitbodedut. Okay, text number 5. Amanda, you want to go?
So that it means seclusion?
Correct, seclusion.
Can you say it one more time?
Hitbodedut.
Hitbodedut is one of the most superior of all the distinguished practices. It is a practice of the greatest saints and the medium through which the prophet experienced revelation.
Yeah, so the medium which the prophet achieved revelation. Back in the day, there used to be prophet schools. Now there is non-prophets. Back then there was for prophets. And, and that was better though than the other one. And there was like a techniques that they taught that if you want to attain the level of being able to have prophecy, you needed to have this type of meditation. And Hitbodedut, what means, is secluding, or we call it detaching meditation, because the whole practice of it is removing the dirt. Removing the dirt and allowing space for that treasure chest to pop out. And the same, let's bring another analogy just to like make it complete the picture of it here. There's two ways of how someone can get healthy. Someone has their numbers not, the charts are not showing good numbers. There's two ways of how to get healthy. Either method number one is to track all the bad habits that you're having and focus bad habit, to remove all of those. So the focus is cut the sugar, stop sitting on the couch, stop scrolling, all the negative things that someone does, stop focusing on that. Start to focus on that in order to remove all of that, all of those negative, all of that functions that prevent the soul from being expressed, and through removing, or that's why through detaching, basically detaching all that negative experience or all that negative thoughts, that would make space for the treasure inside. And this is the first type of meditation, that you go to a space, you mentioned before that you go to a space, empty space, you go to nature, and you quiet your mind from all the negative things happening. And you try to detach and stop listening to all those voices within in order to allow or to create space for the soul to actually start expressing itself. Because if we're busy all day running and in our top of mind is our work and our activities that we have to do on all those, whatever we're worried about our bodily needs, so we barely have any time. We don't create space for any of the soul to be expressed. So first type of meditation is when we detach. We detach our bodily needs. We create that silence. We create that space in the world, in our minds, and within ourselves as well. If we need it, we do it in a physical way. We go outside to nature, or we do it, within our minds. We meditate about the bad things or the negative things and all the dust that needs to be removed. And in order to create space for the treasure chest, in order to create space for the needs of the soul or for what the soul is about, in order to get in tune and to access that treasure that we mentioned. So we find that this type of meditation, Hitbodedut, is ancient and is being practiced for many, many generations, and also was the way that prophets came to be prophets. They weren't born prophets. They weren't born people with gifted people. A lot of our prophets, they did. Samuel is the most classic example of someone who was born gifted. But a lot of our prophets, they became prophets through the meditation and through allowing their soul to come up to the surface and that to be top of mind. Then suddenly they have this attunement, or they're attuned with what's godly, instead of what's bodily, or what's instead of they're attuned with their soul instead of their body. Text number 8. Julie.
Concerning the orchard,
No, text number 6 in page number 44.
finding the spirit within. It is reported in many of the works of the medieval rabbis that seclusion,
Yes.
separation from everything mundane, kirshut, and devotional cleaning, devukut, were practiced by the pious Jews. This is to say that when they were alone, they would empty their minds of all worldly concerns and connect their minds with the master of all existence. The same Kabbalist, the Arizal, taught that this practice is far more beneficial for the soul than study, and that every person should practice this seclusion meditation according to their ability, either once a week, once a fortnight, or at the very least, once a month.
Yeah, so even the Arizal is more contemporary than the previous, than Avram ben Aram, than the son of Maimonides. He also says that the hitzbodedut, and here over here we read a few more definitions. We read hitzbodedut, then we read prishut and dvikut. So basically what this means is hitzbodedut is the physical act of separation. You don't get into this type of meditation in the middle of the bell line. You go to one of the forests when there's no one there, and you separate yourself physically. And then there is prishut, that is more in the mind, where you have to separate your mind from all the negative of all the noise, quiet your mind. And then the result is dvekut, when you have this attachment or this attunement to what you're trying to achieve. So we see that the not only the son of Maimonides, but also the Arizal, he also advocated for this to happen, for this to be a practice, and at least every, as he mentions, either once a month, once a week, or once every 2 weeks. It's interesting note is that on the concept of meditation, that there is many Hasidim that they were known for praying for hours. That they were known. I don't know if you ever saw those pictures of people like wrapped in a talis, wrapped in a prayer shawl, and they're just sitting there. They're not like sitting in the minyan, but they're just like wrapped in a prayer shawl and sitting by themselves. So what they're doing there, what the picture is describing, is that discipline of meditation that they had with prayer. But what basically the point is that this is a meditation that not only great prophets achieve, but also is something that should be done and is advocating to done till today. Now, we'll skip text number 7, but text number 8, we'll see what could be the risks of this type of meditation. So, Dustin, you want to read?
Yeah. 4 individuals entered the orchard. Pardes, they explored the Torah's mystical secrets. They are Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Acher, and Rabbi Akiva. Ben Azai gazed at the divine presence and died. Ben Zoma gazed at the divine presence and became crazed. Acher gazed and shot down the shoots of saplings. He became heretic. And Rabbi Akiva emerged safely.
So what it's basically saying over here is that although meditation is something that everyone should be achieving, it has its risk. We see from here of even great sages who they had already the learning and they had already the lifestyle, but nevertheless, they each one got their side effect. And the reason for this is because, of course, their level was different from our level, but at the end of the day, when someone deals with trying to push away or to remove negative thoughts or bad habits, what you're focusing all the time is on the negative. And tracking that back or going back to last week, if you have all the time in top of mind and your thoughts is always negative thoughts, what's going to end up happening? The feelings are going to follow. And if the feelings are going to follow, it's not going to be healthy. So although the way to reach the treasure chest on a way of removing the rubble is an option, but nevertheless, removing the rubble, you become dirty. And that may be risky for people. They say that they say the story of a person who let's say did a person who did this type of meditation. He he was always, he struggled a lot with lust. This guy was always looking at women, and like, so he's like, had to like focus his mind. So that's what he was dealing with all day. He was trying to focus his negative thoughts of not thinking about it. And they say that he was once walking down the street and he bumps into a post. And he says, "I'm sorry, miss." Having in mind, like not thinking about, not having thoughts about women. So when he bumps into a pole, he thinks, he automatically thinks he bumped into a woman, because that's like what he had in mind all the time. So although it is a technique and it is a tool, this type of meditation, to achieve and to reach the treasure, to reach what we have the soul that we have inside of us, but nevertheless it has risks. So now we're going to see a different type of meditation. That this is the one that is advocated by the Rebbe and is advocated by the Chabad movement, and this is more focusing on the positive, and this is the one that till today it's the most beneficial, and we see how that works. And that is the text number 9 brings us to Hitbonenut meditation. So we could see actually in text in page 48 we have like the chart over there. So we could see that Hitbodedut and Hitbonenut, they're very similar. One's just has a D and the one has an N, but actually they come from 2 different sources of the verbs. One is to be like alone and secluded, and one is contemplation. And we just explored the first one, which is to remove all the negative and to create space for something positive to emerge, or for the soul to emerge. And although it's a technique that is valid and was used, nevertheless, dealing with the dirt and dealing with the negative, you become, or you might get dirty and have negative thoughts and feelings. So a better way, or a different way, and that's the one that is most relevant to us, is the one of contemplation. When we focus, this is on the positive. So instead of focusing, if you want to become healthy, instead of focusing on all the negative habits that you're having, focus on all the positive ones. You ate kale today. We had pizza, fine, but we ate kale, and we had a barley mushroom soup. Those are the things that you have to focus on. And by focusing and by contemplating on that is what will bring the access to that spirituality, to that soul that we have in the treasure that we have in ourselves. And that would be like the example, in the way of analogy, having a strong magnet that just pulls up that treasure chest, and you access the treasure. So instead of dealing with the negative, you just focus on the positive. And that is the meditations of Hitbonenut. Okay, text number 9. So a central foundation of this study of mysticism is to repeatedly spend considerable time in deep contemplation on the subject matter being studied. This is the practice that is referred to as Hitbonenut, which means to firmly visualize a concept and to analyze it deeply. Visualize the concept. I think this is great wording, because the difference between seeing, visual, and hearing is that hearing is less real. Seeing, you see the whole image with all the details right away. When you read, or when you hear something, you hear it detail by detail. You cannot read a scene on a book. In a book, you could read a chapter, and the chapter, goes explaining, and the author needs to explain detail by detail exactly what was happening for you to build that image in your head. And a good author is able to write it in a way that you understand that whole image. But a good movie is where the camera has the best angle, that you could see everything at once. So suddenly, what we need to do, the concept of Hitbonenut, so far technology is not able to take a video of our soul as much as we wanted. There's no videos of our soul. But we could access the soul through the contemplation. We could access the soul through the scriptures and through the Torah and through the learning. So in other words, imagine learning or the only way of watching or knowing Harry Potter is through a book. That's it. So we have to actually go detail by detail and visualize it and learn it. And this is not Harry Potter, of course, but visualize it and get into your mind detail by detail, and then contemplating and thinking about it and over, and until you encompass all the details, and from every angle that you see it, it becomes visualized. It becomes a concept, that this idea is not something abstract, it's not something that you know a few details, but it's actually something that you could just see it in your head, as if you were watching with your eyes. And that's the focus of contemplation, of this type of meditation, hitbonenut, where we hone in and you really, really focus on the subject matter. And in this case, the subject matter is either the soul or the positive thought or the positive concept that you're learning, and honing and having, visualizing and creating this concept into reality, bringing it into reality in such a way that is, you could see it in your mind. That is the level of hitbonenut. So imagine now having this concept of God, or this concept that, we were going to have an exercise now at the end, but that is kind of like foreign to us. And the only way to access it is through the learning. The meditation, what it does is brings that learning into a visual. Okay, text number 10. Sorry, when we...
You shall take it to heart. This is a positive commandment to know God. We are enjoined to investigate and develop an appreciation of God's unity and not rely solely on received tradition. However, since the spiritual understanding of the divine is abstract and not easily understood, the verse emphasizes that we must take it to heart. The Hebrew term for take it in this verse more literally means return it, indicating that we must repeatedly contemplate the concept until it settles in our mind. The term take to heart always refers to a matter that requires profound concentration and extra focused thinking.
Yes, so this concept you have to go over and over. It's not something that you read it and you know it. It's not that you know the information, but it's that you visualize and you make the information something real in your mind. Could skip text number 11, but we'll go directly, as we're running out of time, we'll run directly into, well, actually, let's read text number 12.
Through honest contemplation with deep focus, a person's soul develops an authentic closeness and attachment with God. Commensurate to their spiritual standing. Through this, one fulfills the mitzvah to love God.
Yes. So there's a